back to that big summer thing. Speaking of probably the biggest influx of cash that Liverpool are likely to get is for their, well, I won't say he was a project. I'll say he was a little bit of a punt in terms of the huge amount of money that was outlaid for him, especially over the course of the full contract. And that's Darwin Nunez. And, we saw him make a somewhat, like a very, very exciting start, the very, very start. Then the first season, maybe not so great. Season 2, I thought there was lots to love. I saw him a couple of times in season 2, and I was really impressed with him, as was everybody else in the ground. This season, again, it's fallen away. And you and I have discussed on this show how it looks as if maybe he may have hit a wall with his frustration levels, having been on his bike at Christmas and then suddenly not on his bike and being told he was going to be an important part and then not being as evolved as he wanted to be and his form not being what he wanted to be. Apparently recently he's had a little bit of a dark spell for himself, and theoretically that might have been the reason for his exclusion from at least one squad. So we're looking at Darwin Nunez. We're looking at Darwin Nunez as, even with all that baggage, being a very, very, very saleable asset, especially to Saudi if they come back in again. What is the latest that we've heard on Nunez? Because there is at least one very interesting wrinkle to this story this time around.
Yeah, I think it's been going on for so long, isn't it? There's an inevitability that he's going to leave. Everyone knows Darwin Nunez is heading for the exit door come the summer. It's all been about when, and it's all been about how is that going to come about. And even as we said the other day, Trev, on the show, there's almost a sadness to it about the rumours that we heard at the training ground, and not an Arne Slot saying, well, he wasn't necessarily ill, he wasn't necessarily injured, but he left training. And David Lynch on Media Matters said, he said, I was in that embargo for that. And we were all looking at each other like, this doesn't quite sit right or sound right. And you can watch the show if you want, and the clip people, but said, like, a lot of journos were like, not really sure about this. It might be some non-type of thing, but whether he's mentally checked out, whether he's mentally struggling, whatever it is, but there's something not right there. It is the ultimate thing. And all of a sudden, this story comes up, and it's through a bowler, isn't it? And I know you've seen it, Trev, this one about, there's a belief, a €5 million or 4.3 million, I think it is, clause exists that if Darwin Nunez plays or starts one more game for Liverpool is triggered. Now, a lot of sites, places have shared this understandably, but it all comes from the same source, and Portugal that way. We've been trying to dig on this and get any info, like from any, can anyone actually stand this up? Is this definite? Because then you're thinking, well, this could explain a little bit as well, couldn't it, if the club are aware of this? And actually, just in terms of where we are right now, if there is truth in this, why would you start him? He's not an important, we're just being honest, in brutal terms. If the league's practically already won, he's not a player, it would make sense not to pay this money and not to trigger the court clause that way. The only thing to say, and I have to be honest, from digging around, as you know, trying to get info on this, there's no UK source we can get to stand this up and say, yeah, we know this is the case. And at the same time, as a few journalists have made a good and fair point to us, the club are not really going to come out and leak this, are they? They're not going to leak any sort of contractual matters and clauses. That's not the style. That's not the way it's done at all. So, in long story short, it could be true. It is possible, but we cannot tell you. We know that. We cannot say on this show, yeah, absolutely, this is part of the storyline as to why he's not playing. We cannot say that, but it is believable at the same time.
So just to reiterate the details of this prospective clause that's being floated by this source, if he plays 60 matches, is that correct?
I think so, yeah. That's
then
what, yeah.
Then this 5 million payment is triggered, and he's currently on 59 starts.
Yeah, literally one off. It's crazy, isn't it?
So when you put it that way, it might explain a whole hell of a lot in terms of where the lad's head might be, in terms of his involvement and so on and so forth. We saw Klopp persist with Jota when Jota looked like a fella who was after winning a raffle to play for Liverpool. So, I mean, and by the way, that's not saying that Darwin was pulling up trees. He wasn't.
No.
But do you know what? It's interesting. And again, we deal on this show with information, but also rumors and speculation, because that's what transfer shows are for. So there is another one for you. Hope you enjoyed that. But we're not quite finished yet. This will be a shorter than usual show, but we're not quite finished yet, because we have one more thing to talk about, and it's another striker link, and it's a further little wrinkle in the Victor Osimhen story. What's this about?
This is so interesting when you talk about this player, because we mentioned on shows before, and you know that what nearly so nearly happened in January, but didn't come to fruition for the things that we mentioned. This one now, I'll be honest, before this week, and this isn't being disrespectful at all, if you can see it on the screen, people, we've retweeted it via Anfield Index. I'd never heard of Bucci Laba, if I'm pronouncing that right. I had no idea. You know, if someone has said that, I have no idea who that is. But a well-known Nigerian football journalist. And, important to say, has had interviews and bits with Osimhen a number of times. So that's important to say. And when you speak to various UK journos and different people, because it can easily be like, how have you fallen for this? Like, it's like, no, UK journos and different people we spoke to have said, absolutely, well known, well respected. Like, this is a guy who knows Nigerian football and moves like that inside out. If you can't see it on the screen, there was someone did a tweet with a compilation of Victor Osimhen to replace Nunez low key. And he stated, like, no, it's a massive upgrade. It's not a replace. It's the detail that he's put here, Trev. Liverpool were one of the English teams that are heavily frustrated by Napoli wanting to do the deal at the start of the season. They gave all the access to Chelsea. So they indicating they tried last summer gone. They came back in January 2025. Funny that. Who said that? Talked about that. And I'm 100% sure they will come back in June. Now, granted, a Nigerian football journalist saying that does not mean 100% that Victor Osimhen is going to end up a Liverpool player. Not saying that for one single second. But we talked about Osimhen in June and how close it was. This guy is referencing that, and a few others have at the same time. Osimhen is, I know it's Turkey, but he's banging them in. And I mean banging them in still. He's an elite goal scorer. All the metrics profile that way as well. Other sort of info that we know that he's a physical specimen, Osimhen. Yes, people will talk about AFCON. Yes, people will say about injuries. I understand all that. But one of the reasons we've also got where the analysts like him, physical, big forward, and rapid. We need pace in our attack this summer, don't we, Trev? There's no two ways about it. We've got to get quicker players onto the pitch. And this guy, in terms of sprint speeds, fits the bill that way. So it's weird. When the AFCON schedule came out, I almost thought, should we just dismiss this completely because of the potential to miss it? But as a few journalists also said, Liverpool were happy to have Mane and Salah go. Maybe happy's the wrong word, but they were accepting of Salah and Mane going at the same time. So just this and everything we're hearing around Victor Osimhen, there's a dearth of elite number 9s out there who are gettable, isn't there? Let's be honest, a real limited option of elite number 9s who are gettable. Because of the circumstances, a year left on his Napoli deal, wanting to move on, all the things we mentioned previously about January, I just don't think you can dismiss this right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I've been just mesmerized watching that compilation, goal after goal after goal. And of course, you could have done that with Darwin before he came to Liverpool, and you could do that with some of the wonderful goals he has scored for Liverpool. But we desperately need someone who can help Mo out in terms of being, if not a goal machine, then a well-oiled goal sort of assistant. And that is absolutely essential, you would imagine, going forward. You mentioned pace as well through the middle. That would be wonderful to see too. So, I mean, you look at someone like Osimhen and you go, yeah, and the AFCON thing is an issue. There's literally no two ways about it. If you're going to be trying to compete for the big trophies, that the timing of that is pretty horrendous. But someone is going to be coming in, and that is very exciting. And like I think it was Nigel earlier on, for me, the one I hope we get is Alvarez, but it seems like the longest shot. But he just seems to have, I was listening to Jan talking about him last night on Mulby on the Spot, and Jan was telling me he's got that physicality, he's not afraid of a tackle, he's got that technical ability, he's got a super attitude, he's right age, he can bring people into play. I mean, that's what you want. But again, I'm not going to turn up my nose at any elite striker that we get in, because it makes a big old difference for us. We wanted to do this one this evening, Dave, because there has been all that news, specifically with the Osimhen thing.
Yeah.
I'll leave it to you if there's any last minute things. You often have a little bit of a twist at the end or some extra info that you want to throw in just before we finish.
Yeah. And do you know what? You can all call me ITK this, blah, 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 whatever in the chat. I really don't care. But just the info, as we say, we're getting is, don't be surprised if a couple more names drop during the week. Was one thing what we're going to say. Like, things are accelerating quick, because transfer window number 1 doesn't open in mid-June like it normally does. It opens on the 1st of June. So it's just brought everything forward almost that couple of weeks. Like, if you think about these Osimhen stories, we'd probably start to hear them in mid-May, wouldn't we, as accelerated? But because the window's so quick and coming, it's all moved forward. That is number 1. As a few analysts have also pointed out or said, Trev, as well, Liverpool are probably going to have a big Trent-shaped hole in their side and in their creativity and all that bit. We all know what's coming in the summer. As a lot of analysts point out, though, okay, you might maybe not create as much, but if you have an Osimhen, if you have an Alvarez, you get people who take big chances or don't need as many chances possibly as the ones we've got now. So that might be the way you push the needle back in that sense. So I'm really excited for this summer. I still think it's going to be punctuated by how good is the attacker that supports Mo. Yes, left back. Yes, all the other positions where everyone jumps on me. But this, how far the needle moves for us is almost who replaces Darwin Nunez. And that will decide so much for me.
Especially when you consider all the rest of the clubs who are going to be challenging will push on over the summer. City won't do what City did this year again. And you imagine if Arsenal are ever going to have a go, it'll be next season or bust. Same for Chelsea. You imagine them moving on as well, and several other clubs as well. You can see them progressing. So it is going to be about us getting our recruitment right. And Dave, 2 transfer windows, my friend. I mean, we're going to have to get 2 sets of outfits for 2 deadline days, matching ties and, off the shoulder number for me. We've got to get this right. It's exciting. But for a transfer show, probably can't do much better than getting 2 transfer windows. So look, it's all shaping up nicely. According as information comes in, we will, like we did this evening, just do a show on the fly. May not even suit either of our schedules, but we do try to get these things out to you. For all of you who are watching live, lovely to see you in such numbers. That's great. Please tell your pals. And for anyone else who is going to listen on the later run-throughs podcast or the live rerun, whatever it happens to be, or on YouTube, great to have you with us as well. We appreciate your eyes and ears, and from myself and from Dave, for yet another transfer podcast. Take care.